Welcome to the Character Sheet, your home for all things fantasy and TTRPG news. We have a very special guest today. You may know him as Goth Andrew from Taika Waititi's Time Bandit series, but you probably know him as the Dungeon Master from the new Daggerheart Azerim and a member of the incredible Viva La Dirt League. Robert Hartley, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello there, thank you for having me. I'm impressed that you're deep dive into my IMDb background, I guess.
Yes, I almost went with Army Technician in day 6. But the first question I always want to ask when there's someone that's sort of new to like that Critical Role Beacon family and that platform is, how did you wind up doing this big Daggerheart collab with Critical Role? How did that come about?
Oh boy, well, it was, I'll give you the not 2-hour version, but I was an actor for a longest time. I eventually decided I wasn't really getting joy out of it anymore and went back to university to study mathematics. And while I did that, I discovered D&D, and I was like, "Oh, this D&D thing's pretty fun. It's scratching that itch that acting kind of had for a while." And then the longer I did it, the more I realized, oh, it's kind of the other way around actually. That acting was all the things that I enjoyed about acting were always scratching this itch for roleplay that I didn't know yet because I didn't know about tabletop roleplay games. And so I got into D&D in a huge way, and through that I met Viva La Dirt League and started running D&D games for them. And then through doing that, I started doing other TTRPGs with them, like one-shots and stuff. Daggerheatr came out into beta testing, and I was running a one-shot for the Viva guys. And I thought, I'm gonna use some of this duality dice system, not like the full Daggerheatr, but I'm gonna test some of these things that are in beta testing for the Daggerheatr thing, and really enjoyed it. And I thought, oh, I'd definitely run some Daggerheatr once it's officially released. And then fortuitously, Viva and Critical Role have been in contact for a little while now because they have the same agent. So there's been talks about like, oh, how can we do some sort of collab between us? And then it came across our table, as it were, and said, would you guys like to do run one of the frameworks, one of the module frames from Daggerheatr? And jumped at the chance, said, heck yeah, we would. Let's do it. And I just went through the different frames and said to the players, which one of these sounds like you? And they said, let's try Beast Feast.
That was literally going to be one of my next questions is, why do you feel that the Beast Feast frame was like such a good fit for Azerim?
Yeah, I went through all of them and decided on the ones that I would be happy running and the ones that interested me, because I think that's often overlooked as a choice as a game master. You have to remember that you're also one of the players. You're also one of the people who are having fun at the table. So you've got to enjoy the story you're telling. And so I decided I'd be happy with any of these 3. And then I presented it to the guys and they said, we like this one for various reasons. It was, I think, a few of them are really big fans of Monster Hunter. Mm-hmm. A few of them were really into Dungeon Meshi, the Delicious in Dungeon series, as was I. I'd been watching that as well. And the lack of complexity to it as well helps, because our sort of unique selling point among actual plays is that we do just half-hour content that's kind of just short and snappy, easy to binge, and so we thought the slightly less complicated one of the frameworks would be easy. Like, you fall into a dungeon, you have to eat your way back out again. Done.
To me, obvious follow-up question here. What do you think the most delicious monster in Azerim is?
Oh goodness! I've always had a real enjoyment of thinking about how various different monsters in high fantasy would be eaten. I've got a go-to, which is to use any sort of gelatinous ooze of any kind. And having them prepared like little tapioca squares, or like little making Turkish delight sort of things out of a black pudding or gelatinous cubes. And I think anything that's ooze-like can make for maybe it's a way of marinating the meat, because it semi-dissolves it, and the acid of the ooze helps make like a delicious gravy or something when it's watered down. I don't know. I've always had a thing for describing how you would eat different monsters.
Well, it seems like Beast Feast was definitely the right way to go.
Yeah.
And then you joke about it a lot during the episodes, and you can kind of see it as you guys in the cast are working through it. But you were kind of learning Daggerheart like a little bit on the fly as you were going. But how much did you actually have to figure out on the fly, and how easy was it to jump into Daggerheart after having a lot of experience running D&D before this?
I think it was remarkably easy for me because a few things. Partly because I just thankfully have been blessed with an ability to remember things. It's I have a head for figures and facts and rules and lines. Even it helped me a lot when I was an actor, and I could just learn lines very quickly by kind of looking at them. I don't exactly have a fully photographic memory, but I do have a memory that can remind me immediately whereabouts things were on a page, so I can kind of almost visualize it in my mind, being like, no, there was an extra part to this. I remember the spell, and it was like 3 paragraphs, and the first part was this, and then it told me this, and so I know that there's an extra bit to it, and then it goes, oh yeah, that was it. And so my head kind of brings rules to mind relatively easily, which is certainly a help in this job. But it was also easy because Daggerheart makes it real easy. Like, I'm not even blowing smoke. It is a fantastic system for just saying, these are the very simple rules. They are simple, but they get across the reality of a narrative situation. If you are wearing armor, you're going to be less evasive. You're not going to dodge out of the way of stuff, so your evasion score is going to be lower, but your armor is going to be higher, which means that your thresholds for damage is going to be higher. Everything just kind of makes intuitive sense while getting out of your way rules-wise. And I really loved that in the system they explicitly state a few times, the rules are secondary to your fun. Like, if you need to change stuff or ignore stuff, do it. It's about you and your table agreeing on what's the most fun way to tell the story, and these rules are there to help you do so, which really spoke to my players' inability to ever learn what the rules of the game are, even after years of playing.
Yeah, in that way, it hasn't really, like, the system almost didn't matter in that case, because it was
exactly, yeah. In a way, it does not, and I just. For me, I'm a huge numbers crunchy guy. I love mechanics as much as possible, and Daggerheart makes it super easy to just come up with new stuff as well. So, for instance, in Beast Feast, I found, for my taste, with my interest in crunch, the cooking system was not in depth enough. So I was like, cool, now Daggerheart has made it so easy for me to just decide, yeah, I'll decide for myself what the cooking system's going to be, what the harvesting system's going to be, how to forage for materials, and how to preserve those materials so that they don't go off and before you get around to cooking them and all that stuff. Whereas if you're not a number crunchy kind of a person, you don't have to go into all that detail with it. You can just go, yeah, roll some dice, and that's what you cook.
Yeah, I think I talked to Spencer Stark and Matt Mercer for like 15 minutes about the cooking system, because I come from a background of like family operated restaurants for a long time.
Right.
Did a lot of kitchen work growing up, and the amount of stuff that it opens you up to the possibility of doing with your downtime activities that other games like D&D don't really have is great. And that kind of answered one of my questions about what sort of things were you able to do in Daggerheart that you couldn't quite find a place for in D&D. And I think we see that in episode 4. Because in episode 4, there's a whole segment about you spend a good chunk of the episode crafting a spoon and like making a stew. So there's a lot of fun downtime stuff that's just not available.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun coming up with those crafting mechanics and deciding on what they could do with their downtime. Because one of the things that I was really pleased to see in Daggerheart is the ease at which you transition from the various different aspects of the game. You're exploring, or you're overland traveling, or you're fighting, or you're in a social combat, a social interaction, any kind of encounter. They all feel like the same game that you're playing. I love D&D, but one of the problems with it is that it is 2 different games. They talk about how D&D is based on the 3 pillars: combat, the roleplay, the exploration. And yet almost all of your features and spells and actual like physical, tangible rules and mechanics of your character are all about doing damage and avoiding damage. It is ultimately a combat game where you can also roleplay outside of that, and it feels like very different games when you go into initiative and suddenly everything's turn-based. In Daggerheart, one of the things I loved that was different to that was that it was you've got stat blocks for your monsters and adversaries, but you've also got the same stat blocks listed out in the same way that still use the fear mechanic and the stress mechanic, and you just apply them to the environment or the terrain or the person and the social interactions that they can do that can force you to take stress because of this stressful way that they're looking at you, because you have a feature called social faux pas or something that's like, oh, you stumbled, make a presence roll, and if you fail then you take stress because you're stressed at how this awkward social interaction has gone. Everything just feels like it's the same mechanics to the same game. and it makes it really easy to come up with those stat blocks outside of combat as well, and say, oh, these are some downtime stat blocks. It's basically like you have an ethereal concept of your adversary being this task that you're trying to do during downtime, and it makes the game so easy to homebrew things for.
No, I mean, we'll touch back on some homebrew later, because one of the monsters in episode 2 we really have to touch on because it's hilarious. But right. I guess as an English transplant, are you secretly delighted that most of the cast is keeping up that proud tradition of speaking in various British accents despite being clearly set in New Zealand? The Lord of the Rings of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's painful to me sometimes because I'm very good at accents. I've always done mimicry and putting on silly voices, and I think if you grow up in England, you're slightly more leaning towards doing good accents anyway, because we're always taking the mick out of all of our neighbours. And so you grow up in Yorkshire like I did, and you've got to take the mick out of the Scouse people, and so you got to put the voice on, and then you've got to take the mick out of the Brummies, and then oh darling, you got to take the mick out of the Southerners, don't you? And so everybody in the UK, there's so many different accents. You go 10 meters down the road, you're going to start hearing this guy sounds different. He says things weird. And so there's a million different accents. Everybody gets more familiar with them. And then moving to New Zealand, when people are trying to put on the Scottish or the Irish or the whatever, and you go, okay, that's your Scottish, is it, Podger? All right, sure. Oh, you're going to do some version of Cockney for this? Fair enough. But hey, the thing about accents is, as long as you do it consistently, no one can tell you it's wrong. Because for all we know, maybe he had some sort of outside influence to his accent by his parents were born in some other country, or he spent time studying in some other place. Yeah, and the last thing I always say about accents in fantasy worlds is, hey, you might tell me it's a bad French accent, but that's the thing. I wasn't doing French. I was doing Sylvan, and who's to say that's not a perfect Sylvan accent? It's a fantasy language, fantasy culture, fantasy country. Maybe that's how they all sound there.
Listen, I mean, if Farscape can give us Australians in space, I think it's only fair that Daggerheart Azerim can give us New Zealanders in fantasy. So,
exactly.
For
some reason, the guys always have a problem whenever I do an NPC with an American accent, though. For some reason, they say, American just seems to take me out of the high fantasy. And I was like, what, but Irish is fine? And they're like, yeah, Irish seems fine in high fantasy. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's in their defense, it's hard to peg an American accent that makes a lot of sense in fantasy. we barely creep into sci-fi. Just like, you can every now and then just get someone who's just got a neutral accent in sci-fi. And that's about the best. It's hard to fight a dragon.
I won't spoil anything, but I will say that during the Daggerheart series, I do manage to get an American accent in there, and it does not take them out of it. I kind of made it my challenge. Like, you'll see an American in there.
That's what I think. Whenever I try and do accents, I have a rule, and I started doing it with when I did the beta for 20-Sided Tavern when they were first coming out with that traveling show. Is all of my dwarves are canonically from New Jersey in America. So they all sound like Sopranos characters.
I was approached to audition for 20-Sided Tavern, and it sounded like an amazing thing, but it just didn't fit in with my time schedules and stuff. Well,
they're still doing it, and they're still looking, so they might come back to you. Everyone I've talked to that's done it, especially the DMs, like Abria had a great time with it. I know. They really love it, and it's a very different experience. You're sort of at the whim of the audience sometimes. It can lead some. But I guess you're probably actually more used to that than anyone else, because you've got a more chaotic table to have to wrangle than a lot of actual players, I feel like.
Yeah, I think for comedians that are focused on sketch comedy usually are a very different type of vibe to people who are understanding we're in it for the long haul, and this is a 4-hour game that people are going to watch tonight. Viva guys are going, this is 30-minute comedy, and we have to be doing something hilarious and whatever every 5 minutes. And so they bring the ridiculous nonsense, and I have to try and ground them in reality as much as possible. I bring consequences for their ridiculous nonsense.
Well, speaking of consequences for their ridiculous nonsense, a follow-up question to the homebrew thing is, how did you come up with the penis flytraps, aka the inside-out dryads covered in super glue who seduce non-garlic farmers?
I was trying to think about this the other day. I was trying to remember where it came from. It definitely evolved during a conversation with my assistant. where we were talking about various different things. I think I was probably talking about the monster stat blocks and how adversaries work in Daggerheart, and how I could just come up with anything I needed. Because of the framework of the Beast Feast, I needed there to be very distinct feelings to each of the rooms. So there's Brilliance, which you've seen, which is kind of the forested area that's lush and green, and there's all kinds of things in there. And I thought, okay, there's going to be a monster there that's obviously plant-based. Your typicals are your tree ants and your shambling mound type things, your living bushes. And I don't remember exactly where it came from, whether it was her idea or mine, but at some point it got mentioned that there should be some dryads that try and seduce them to get them into trouble, because we know 100% that they would voluntarily jump into any trap that was any kind of sexy woman. And it evolved from there. And I think the idea for them to be basically a Venus flytrap was mine. I was like, oh, they're going to seduce them and not just take them back to then push them into a pit or anything. It's going to be actually the woman themselves, because I loved the horrific idea that they would split open from the back and then to turn themselves inside out like a
wooden
very
Iron
slowly
Maidens,
closing trap. Yeah, wooden Iron Maidens. Yeah, it was a horrific idea, but that's sometimes how my brain goes. Here's where the creativity is going today. Look at how horrendous and horrific and awful this imagery is that we've just given you. Now put it on someone else.
Cool. Down the road, because you talk about it a little bit in the second episode as we discussed, like getting all the new classes for the characters as they had to make the jump from D&D to Daggerheart. Do you think if this goes well, at some point down the line there could be like a Viva La Dirt League supplement book that finally brings the garlic farmer class to a D&D setting, or to a Daggerheart setting?
I would absolutely love it. Hell yeah, I would absolutely love it if that ever happened. If there was, if it got popular enough, if this series was popular enough among the Daggerheart, the Critical Role, the Darrington Press crowd, that they wanted to ask us to do something like that, I'd love to work on one. As I say, like numbers crunching, rules, mechanics, that's my jam. I'm absolute nerd for doing that sort of thing, and homebrewing game mechanics and different rules for different systems and coming up with stuff. That's what I live for. And I have. It's funny you should say, because in the Discord for Beacon, in the Daggerheart Azerim channel, a few of the fans have been talking about, Robert's complaining that there's no Garlic Farmer class, so I'm going to put one together. And then somebody's already homebrewed their own version of the NPC class, where they've used images from the Epic NPC Man series, like screenshots of Greg, and use those as the imagery on the cards for things like help me find my sheep, and people get to re-roll their attacks or whatever. It's very fun, and it would be a lot of fun to come up with one.
Oh, I would love to see Greg Shit Garlic Farm come to a Daggerheart supplement near us soon.
Yeah, I'd love it if all of the abilities were sort of subtle nods to various things that have happened in the Epic NPC Man series, like some of the early ones. The whole thing evolved, in case anybody doesn't know Epic NPC Man. You should definitely check it out on Viva La Dirt League. But it's a series where it came about just from the idea, a single tagline in their ideas document back in the day that was, what if an NPC in a massive multiplayer online world was sentient or was aware of the fact he's in a game? And so they started telling these 3-minute comedy sketches that were all sort of part of this huge canonical story of essentially if a character in World of Warcraft or something was the main character of the series, and so we get to stick around him as somebody comes up and forces him to buy just all of the garbage that somebody accrues in that kind of a game. You kill a rat and suddenly you get a big old chair, and then you go and sell it to the shopkeep, and the shopkeep has no option but to buy it from you regardless of how trash it is. And then somebody gets slain in front of you, or the Garlic Farmer himself gets stabbed to death so that the person can loot his shop, and then he just respawns a moment later with all of the horrific trauma and memories of having just gone through what he went through. It's a very fun series, but like it would be great if the class had things to do with that. Like you have an ability where you can respawn after death with all of your memories, or you have infinite gold but only to buy crap with, or just I don't know. Could be fun to just come up with some ideas for it.
No, yeah, and yeah, NPCs. All of the Viva La Dirt League shorts are fantastic. Or not shorts, the not actual plays. All of the sketches are hilarious. I love Tech Town. I love a lot of them. But the Dark Souls ones were what really, I think maybe for a lot of the Western audience, like hooked us. Because I think that's when it first really got real big, like stateside at least. But speaking
Dark
of that,
Souls Dark Souls was huge for them. Yeah, I was Solar in that Dark Souls.
You were Solar. I was going to say, yeah, you got to. And you've also taken on Barad-dûn himself, haven't you? You took over his roles.
I took High Sorcerer from him as Laethil in the first well, technically second, I suppose, campaign that we ran, the Adventures of Azerim, and he the main villain in that one was initially one of the people that he worked with that was always jealous of him and tried to kill him in the end of the first episode, and he disappeared and managed to escape, and then he became the High Sorcerer while Barad-dûn was missing, and then they had to sort of work to get his power back and get back to his original station in life. It was a good series.
Oh, yeah, they've all been fantastic. And like the Viva la Dirt League has a huge fandom. You've got like millions and millions of subscribers across multiple channels. But now you've done something that's like new even for you, where you have joined a platform with Critical Role and Beacon, where like you're not just alongside Matt Mercer, but now you're alongside stuff like Acquisitions Incorporated, one of the original actual plays, like to start the whole thing. You're on this Tales from the Stinky Dragon. You've joined this like sort of larger community. Like when you started out just doing the NPC Man sketches, did you ever think that there'd be a day where it's like, oh, I'm going to get on a work call with Matt Mercer and talk about what my plans are for Daggerheart Azerim, and then like maybe it'll air the episode after we see Acquisitions Incorporated air on the same platform?
Right. It's bizarre, isn't it? I do have to pinch myself sometimes to realize this is my life. I get to pay my mortgage doing Dungeons and Dragons. How bizarre. There was not a day that I consciously thought, oh, that's something we could do. But I knew that from the beginning of us doing D&D and the reaction it got from the audience, and how quickly, when we started a second channel specifically for tabletop roleplay content, how quickly that hit 100,000 subscribers, and then 250, and then we're approaching 500,000 now, and it was how quickly that it took off that I realized we've got something special. This could go for a long time. This could really see some major growth and brings a lot of people a lot of joy. The thing that didn't really occur to me though was how important it is for a lot of people, because it's been hard for me sometimes to go, this is a normal job, because it doesn't feel that way. And sometimes, especially when the world's in danger and peril, it just feels like we're not doing a hell of a lot that's worth contributing to society, until you talk to some people who say, this is everything. This is the thing that helps me get through this. The ability to joy, the ability to have fun, the ability to be reminded that life's about telling stories and enjoying yourselves with your friends, and laughter and fun and joy is vital, absolutely vital to who we are. And I think it's that side of things, getting used to that, getting familiar with the fact that is the case for a lot of people. That is the sort of thing that makes it not dreamlike to be working with these heroes of mine, these idols, but realistic. I can look at those things and go, this is incredible, and I can absolutely be appreciative of what we're doing. But I can also look at what we've made and go, this is why we're working with these people, because we have a platform where we do bring this to people, and that's and we're of accord with that. Critical Role and Dimension 20 and Adventure Zone and you name it, Acquisitions Incorporated, Tales of the Stinky Dragon, everyone who makes things on YouTube, Dingo Doodles, and everyone. I literally could go on for minutes and minutes and minutes listing various different people who create tabletop roleplay content on YouTube, and we're all of the same accord in the fact that we are doing this to just bring joy to people's lives and to tell stories and to spread fun and to help people to have more fun playing these sorts of games. And I think that's why we've inevitably ended up working together, because that's what we're all wanting to do.
And then one final question to wrap it up, and that is, Daggerheart is obviously getting the continued support of Critical Role, and people are loving Daggerheart Azerim. It's getting some great views on YouTube. The Beacon Discord and the Critical communities are loving it. It's found like an audience outside of just that huge Viva La Dirt League audience. But with Hope and Fear coming out for Daggerheart later this year, is there a chance that we're going to see this Daggerheart version of Azerim continue, and maybe they'll finally get a chance to get some of those levels back that they lost in the de-leveling process jumping over to Daggerheart?
I mean, unfortunately, that has nothing to do with me. I am along for the ride. So I'm actually a freelance Dungeons & Dragons or freelance TTRPG creator myself that works with Viva. And so I am part of Viva for the Daggerheart stuff. And then outside of that, I work with them whenever they need me for something. And so I'm so far removed from the people who make those decisions that eventually people make those decisions. They get in touch with me and say, hey, we're doing this again. And I go, oh, amazing. As far as I am concerned, as far as my part in it, I would absolutely love to. If it came up as an option and they got in touch and said, would you be keen to do more of the Daggerheart thing? There wouldn't be a hesitation. I'd be like, I'd do it tomorrow. Let's go. So yeah, I'd love to see that be a thing, but it all comes down to a lot of different decisions. And when Viva's concerned, they are a production studio that churns out so much sketch comedy every week, several episodes, several different series that they committed to making, and so their schedule is usually filled out months, if not years, in advance. And when someone comes up and says, "Hey, would you do this thing 2 months from us?" they go, "Let's see if we can somehow push it in here. Slot of, yeah, we can probably find a weekend where we can film this." So. We'll see, I guess, is the answer.
Well, amazing. Well, fingers crossed for that, because I'm loving the content. The fans are loving the content. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about Daggerheart Azerim today. It's one of the most fun new actual plays I've seen in a long time. I love the 30-minute format. Makes it really easy to get into. Episode 4 now available on Beacon, like as of, I think, like an hour ago our time.
Yeah.
And so, and as we we wrap up here, actually, well, as we wrap up here in the past for you, because actually, are you in New Zealand currently? I didn't even ask if you were in New Zealand.
I'm in New Zealand currently. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, so you are
I'm in the future. I'm in the future from where. Yeah, I'm in tomorrow.
Yes, you're time traveling back.
It's not bad. It's not a bad day. It turns out. So.
Well, in New Zealand, we'll knock on wood in America. You never know.
You can look out for it in the future.
But thank you so much again for joining us, guys. Please go watch Daggerheart Azerim. It's a great new series. And watch all the other amazing Viva La Dirt League content. Watch their other actual play campaigns. Just watch the sketch comedy. Like I said, the Dark Souls stuff is amazing. It's all amazing.
Go watch the D&D Logic stuff as well.
The D&D Logic stuff is a fantastic series as well. But Robert Hartley, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, guys, thank you for watching. Do the liking and the subscribing, and we'll be back with another story or another interview tomorrow.